Hey everybody, welcome to TYT Nation right here. Well, around the nation on TYT Nation, that is. Got a great show for you guys today. Huge, explosive news. Wow. We've got, of course, Donna Brazil. I'm going to go through that in depth. That's an amazing story. You're not going to want to miss that. We're going to do that like right at the beginning of the show. Then, of course, we also have the mood inside of the White House for Trump. That's also a fun story. Then we've got the Trump tax plan. Pizza Hut. I know it's a weird story, but it's fun. We'll have some fun with pizza. And then, of course, Rick Perry being a moron. That's a fun story. But first, like I said, we have the DNC news, which is explosive. I mean, this is going to resonate for a very, very long time. It's going to have a huge impact, hopefully, on the DNC. So, wow. Big news. So, before I get to that, of course, I want to remind all our viewers, please like and share. So, give us a like, share, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more stuff. We try to put up videos 5 days a week and have a live stream every 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern right here. So please check that out. Subscribing helps you get, of course, notifications and whenever we're live and whenever we upload stuff. So that's cool. And also, I want to thank some patrons who helped the show. Helped a great deal, actually. I couldn't actually do the show without you guys. So you're amazing, and I love all the patrons. Let's do some shout-outs here. We have Raymond Foley and Dorothy Zink. So, Raymond, Dorothy, thank you so much for supporting independent progressive media. You're amazing. So, and all of you are amazing. Thank you so much to everybody who supports us over at Patreon. So patreon.com/TYTNation. All right. With that out of the way, let's roll into our first story, the DNC. Oh, this has been a long time coming. A long time. Okay. Now, there is an explosive new article out in Politico that reveals how the Democratic Party was rigged from the beginning. The primary, I should say, was rigged from the beginning against Senator Bernie Sanders. So this is big news with potential ramifications for a long time to come, especially for the DNC, the Democratic Party, going into the 2018 elections in 2020 and beyond. So, now this article, what makes it the most amazing is because, look, us progressives, we've been talking about this. We've been like, yeah, the DNC definitely was stacked against Bernie Sanders. Some people avoided using the word rigged. Some people obviously had no qualms about using it and were convinced, yes, they rigged it against Bernie Sanders from the beginning, and now we actually have proof. Okay, and it wasn't us that found proof. It was Donna Brazil who wrote this article. Now, she was the interim DNC chairwoman. So this is somebody who was inside the establishment, who was very credible about what's going on inside the establishment because she is a member of the establishment. She's the inside track. She was a big Hillary Clinton supporter, and now is a DNC whistleblower, which is amazing. Okay, so in this article, and I'm going to break it down, she describes first a call with Bernie Sanders and details basically what happened like with this is all insider DNC information about funding, about the previous chair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and how Hillary Clinton had essentially ran a giant money laundering scheme to the benefit of her campaign that actually hurt state campaigns and hurt the Democratic Party overall in the 2016 election. So let me get into the details. Now, she does not have good things to say about former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. In fact, in several parts in this article, she throws Schultz under the bus, which is amazing. And it's a lot of the criticisms that progressives have had against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Tim Canova, of course, early on Twitter tweeted that, hey man, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we were saying about her during the election. This is the stuff that we noticed. We knew she wasn't a good chair. We knew she was in the tank for Hillary Clinton. But of course, there's a lot of people that push back. They're like, no. Completely fair, completely impartial. What are you talking about? Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a great chairwoman. And that's what the establishment would say. And of course, we weren't buying it. Now, anyway, she said that my predecessor, Florida Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, had not been the most active chair in fundraising at a time when Barack Obama's neglect had left the party in significant debt. Now, not only did she throw Debbie under the bus, she also threw Barack Obama under the bus. That's also super amazing, okay? And look, this is something that we've said about President Obama too, in its fair criticism. Under his leadership, since he didn't really care so much about the party, and cared more about his own re-election campaigns, the state parties and the 50-state reach-out strategy wasn't being enacted. It didn't work. And consequently, under Barack Obama's leadership and the DNC's leadership under Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Democrats lost over 1,000 seats in state houses all over the country. So this is partly why. So this explains why they had so many losses in so many areas where they actually should have won. Okay. Now, she also goes on to explain how Hillary Clinton essentially, after President Obama, basically said, okay, DNC, you're on your own, man. I'm not going to help you anymore. Hillary Clinton pulled into the vacuum and was like, you want money? I can get you money, but it comes with a few strings. So she used her funding, signed a deal that left her controlling the party. Now, that includes taking over day-to-day operations, which include access to the money. Now, that's actually a very, very important piece of the puzzle, of course. Now, back on Schultz, she writes, Debbie was not a good manager. She hadn't been very interested in controlling the party. She let Clinton's headquarters in Brooklyn do as it desired, so she didn't have to inform the party officers how bad the situation actually was. So again, here's the DNC not being very transparent. Wow, color me shocked. Now, she said, the Saturday morning after the convention in July, I called Gary Gensler, the chief financial officer in Hillary's campaign. He wasted no words. He told me the Democratic Party was broke and $2 million in debt. What? I am an officer of the party, and they've been telling us everything is fine, and they were raising money with no problems. Gary said that was not true. Officials from Hillary's campaign had taken a look at the DNC's books. Obama had left the party $24 million in debt, $15 million in bank debt, and more than $8 million owed to vendors after the 2012 campaign, and had been paying it off very, very slowly. Obama's campaign was not scheduled to pay it off until 2016. Hillary for America, which is her campaign, and the Hillary Victory Fund, its joint fundraising vehicle with the DNC, had ended up taking care of 80% of the remaining debt in 2016, which is about $10 million, and decided that they would place the party into an allowance. Well, that's interesting. So here's what we're going to do, DNC. We're just going to give you small amounts of money, just enough to cover your bills. So you can't do anything else. And in return, I get to control the party. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, it sounded great to Hillary Clinton. Now, Brazil writes, if I didn't know about this, I assumed that none of the other officers knew about it either. That was just Debbie's way. In my experience, she didn't come to the offices of the DNC for advice and counsel. She seemed to make decisions on her own and let us know at the last minute what she had decided, and that she had done when she told us about the hacking only minutes before the Washington Post broke the news. On the phone, Gary told me that the DNC had needed a $2 million loan, which the campaign had arranged. Now, the thing is that the party, she says, cannot take out a loan without the agreement with all the officers. Well, they didn't. Again, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is like, screw that. Screw democracy inside the Democratic Party. No. I'm just going to go and I'm just going to take Hillary's money and let her control the party. If you didn't get it by now, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is for Hillary Clinton. And she was always for Hillary Clinton. She was put in there to basically coronate Hillary Clinton. This is the coronation, okay? Now, let me explain a little bit more about the joint fundraising agreement, because that actually has a very important part to play in the story. Now, Brazil writes, he described the party as fully under the control of the Hillary campaign, which seemed to confirm the suspicions of the Bernie camp. The campaign had the DNC on life support, giving it money every month to meet its basic expenses, while the campaign was using the party as a fundraising clearinghouse. Individuals who had maxed out on their $2,700 contribution limit to the campaign could write an additional check for $353,400 to the Hillary Victory Fund. That figure represented $10,000 to each of the 32 states parties who were part of the Victory Fund agreement, $32,000 and $33,400 to the DNC. The money would be deposited in the states first and then transferred to the DNC shortly after that. Money in the battleground states, she says, usually stayed in that state, but all other states funneled that money directly to the DNC, which quickly transferred the money to Brooklyn. That right there, that is money laundering. That is a money laundering scheme. You're taking it from the states and going, hey, what is a non-battleground? Arkansas, you don't need that money. Arkansas Democratic Party? No, we're not going to be competitive there. Go ahead and send your money to Hillary. We're go through and send it to the DNC, and then the DNC is going to be like, here you go, Hillary Clinton. Here's your money. Definite money laundering. So this went right into the coffers of the Clinton campaign. Now, back to Gary Gensler. Now, he says, quote, that was the deal Robbie stuck with Debbie. He explained, referring to the campaign manager, Robbie Mook. It was to sustain the DNC. We sent the party nearly $20 million from September into the convention, and more to prepare for the general election. Now, this part is what really sticks out for me, is how they actually spent a lot of that money. Now, Brazil apparently asked, what's the burn rate, Gary? Now, that, of course, refers to how much money they're spending. How much money do we need every month to fund the party? He said the burn rate was $3.5 to $4 million a month. Now, that is a great deal of money. So what was it going to? Well, Brazil explained that between campaigns, the Democratic and Republican national committees, they usually reduce their spending considerably. However, as Brazil says, Wasserman Schultz had not done that. But instead, she, quote, stuck lots of consultants on the DNC payroll. And Obama's consultants were being financed by the DNC as well. Ah, that's where all that money went. Straight into the pockets of the political consultants. Well, a lot of good that did, by the way. Those consultants, boy, they really nailed it, didn't they? But see, here's the thing about that. The consultants win even if you lose. They get paid no matter what. And so here's Debbie saying, all my political consultant friends, go ahead and stay here. We're going to pay you handsome sums of money. Obama's consultants, too, will keep you on as well. Here's all that money. $3.5 to $4 million per month. What do they get for it? Nothing. So what we have here is obviously a massive mismanagement of money, with Wasserman Schultz giving the Clinton campaign essentially control over the DNC completely. And that, of course, was the entire point of putting Debbie Wasserman Schultz in charge of the DNC in the first place, to coronate Hillary Clinton. And of course, how they did that is through that joint fundraising agreement. Now, the details here in that were absolutely amazing. Brazil writes, the agreement, signed by Amy Dacey, former CEO of the DNC, and Robbie Mook with a copy to Mark Elias, specified that in exchange for raising money and investing in the DNC, Hillary would control the party's finances, strategy, and all the money raised. Her campaign had the right of refusal of who would be the party's communications director, and it would make final decisions on all the other staff. So this is a complete takeover of the DNC, complete control. Not only that, but the DNC was also required to consult with the campaign about all other staffing, budgeting, data analytics, and mailings. She says, I had been wondering why it was that I couldn't write a press release without passing it by Brooklyn. Well, here was her answer. So again, that is an unprecedented level of control of the party. And of course, it backs everything that we've been saying since the primary, that the DNC was in the tank for Hillary Clinton. That's because the DNC was part of Hillary Clinton's campaign the whole time. And the timing, by the way, is very interesting, because it's not as if that they did this after the election, which would actually be normal. Okay, the DNC then becomes pretty much, tied to the campaign after the nominee is chosen, and then they go on together to win the election. That's not what happened here. This actually happened before the election and before the primary was even over. They decided on day one, Hillary Clinton, she's going to be our nominee. That means Bernie Sanders, Martin O'Malley, Lincoln Chafee, get out of here. You have no chance. This is the party of our beloved Hillary Clinton. This is a coronation. The entire primary process that we went through is little more than a formality. That's why Hillary Clinton was so annoyed at Bernie Sanders throughout the entire campaign. What do I do to make this guy go away? This is supposed to be my turn. This is supposed to be my time. This was supposed to be my coronation. I'm supposed to be unopposed. And we got this socialist upstart from Vermont coming in and challenging the great Hillary Clinton. We've got to get him out of here. And that's why they had all the dirty tricks. That's why they had the smears. That's why Hillary Clinton, to this day, still blames Bernie Sanders and hates Bernie Sanders. He got in the way of the nomination that she paid for. Bought and paid for. This is the definition of rigged. This was preordained, her winning. Now, as Donna explains, this is not normal. This is not how it should work. She says that when you have an open contest without an incumbent in competitive primaries, the party comes under the candidate's control only after the nominee is certain. This victory fund agreement, however, had been signed in August of 2015, just 4 months after Hillary announced her candidacy and nearly a year before she had officially won the nomination. Brazil adds that if the fight had been fair, which it was not, one campaign would not have control of the party before the voters had decided which one they wanted to lead. She said this was not criminal, but it compromised the party's integrity. You goddamn right it did. Absolutely. Again, we knew it all along. Everything that we said is absolutely 100% true. All the Hillary supporters that scoffed at us, who said, no, you're just crazy. You just can't accept the fact that Bernie Sanders got less votes than Hillary Clinton. And that's why he lost. No, the DNC had nothing to do with it. All the officials from the establishment that came out and said, no, not rigged, not at all. No, of course, this was completely fair and impartial. All the articles from different media outlets calling us crazy Bernie bros, saying that we can't let go, that the primary process was completely fair. What now? What now? You were wrong. You were wrong, and you need to admit it. We need to have a bunch of articles out there explicitly apologizing for the way that Bernie Sanders and his supporters were treated throughout the primary campaign. Those of us who suspected, hey, you know what, something does not seem right here. Something's a little off. I think you're in the tank for Hillary Clinton. We knew it. We knew it. We were right and you were wrong. Now own up to it. Own up to it. And for her part, Donna Brazile actually has. And I give her credit for that. Okay? And again, this is somebody who had also favored Hillary Clinton. She was not a raging Bernie bro. She was fired from CNN for passing along questions to the Hillary Clinton campaign. She was biased towards Hillary Clinton. And even she could not ignore the shenanigans inside the DNC. The blatant favoritism. Even though she played into it. I got to give her some credit for this. Because she just came out against the entire DNC establishment. In a big, big way. A lot of people don't realize. Those who do still criticize her, and even I still criticize her for what she had done. But now, you don't realize how much this is actually going to hurt her politically. All the bridges, burned, gone. So she's, again, this is going to definitely hurt and impact her career going forward, especially inside the DNC. So, you know, there's a little bit of credit I think that she does deserve. So we do remember, though, and we will not forget the way that she screwed over and aided in screwing over Bernie Sanders, that she was part of it as well. So, to be fair. Now, speaking of Bernie Sanders, by the way, and this is probably the thing that really bothers me and it impacts me the most. Okay. Now she writes, I told Bernie I had found out Hillary's joint fundraising agreement. I explained that the cancer was that she had exerted this control of the party long before she became its nominee. Had I known this, I never would have accepted the interim chair position. But here we were, with only weeks before the election. Here we were with only weeks before the election. Okay. Now, here's Bernie's response. She says, Bernie took this stoically. He did not yell or express outrage. Instead, he asked me what I thought Hillary's chances were. So, this right here, it proves that Bernie Sanders is much better of a person than even I realized. And I knew he was already a good person. This guy's like, I ain't even mad. You know why? Because my number one priority is to defeat Donald Trump. He was still more concerned about the country than his personal feelings of being screwed over by the Democratic Party. That is amazing. Bless this man's heart. All right, there's not a lot of people, I think, that would have taken that well. I certainly would not have taken it that well. So, but that's Bernie Sanders for you. It's country first. It's people first. And him second. And all those smears against Bernie Sanders, you know, not right-wingers, but, you know, Hillary Clinton supporters. A lot of them on Twitter, you know, the hate percent. They're like, oh, Bernie Sanders, Messiah complex. Why does he always got to put himself before the country? Why couldn't he do the right thing and drop out of the primary? And why doesn't he do the right thing and just fall in line and support the Democratic Party, support the DNC? Fall in line, Bernie, fall in line. All those criticisms shattered. He wanted to put the country first over himself. That's amazing. Amazing. Now, again, this information, and I keep repeating myself, I know, but we knew this. This was not a surprise. But what was a surprise is where it came from, who it came from. And I don't know why she's coming out and admitting it now. I don't know her motivations. I mean, that's for her to explain. She can explain why. But nonetheless, as I said, it's not easy to go against the Clintons. It's not easy to go against the DNC. It's not easy to fight against the establishment. Now, maybe she just wants to clear her conscience. I don't know. Maybe she wants to push back on people criticizing her for her new role in the DNC. I certainly have. I don't know. However, I am glad that somebody has come forward and admitted that, yes, the primary was in fact rigged in favor of a weaker candidate who purchased the nomination. Now, had it not been, and I can't say for certain, but it's possible that had they not done this, Bernie Sanders could have been the nominee and went on, as poll after poll have shown, to go on to crush Trump. And we would not be in this situation. So you can blame the machinations of the DNC. You can blame the machinations of the Clinton campaign and their power and how much undue power that they hold inside Democratic politics. You can blame the money in politics. That certainly has a huge, huge thing to do with it for this current situation that we have now. What you cannot blame is Bernie Sanders voters, and progressives. Because these are the people, we are the people that have always been trying to do the right thing. Because it's obvious now that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party have never aspired to do the right thing. They've always aspired to serve the people in power. Okay. Damn. That's a heavy story. All right. Let me take a quick break. I'll be right back. We got more and more stories. So we got Donald Trump freaking out in the White House over possible impeachment. That's a crazy story. Stay right here. We'll be right back. And so, just give me a minute. All right. All right, we're back. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Your host, Jeff Waldorf. Like I said, I got more great stories, but please make sure to hit the like and share button, if you could, please. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to Trump. Our other problem. All right. Now, the White House seems to be in panic mode after the Mueller indictments earlier this week. Now, according to different White House advisors, there's talk about what the end game for Trump is going to look like. That's funny. We're about a year into his presidency, and they're already talking about an end game. That is not a good situation. So let's go to Vanity Fair now with Gabriel Sherman here with the details. He writes, "Here's what Manafort's indictment tells me." Now, this is according to Trump campaign aide, former Trump campaign aide Sam Nunberg. He said, "Here's what Manafort's indictment tells me. Mueller's going to go over every financial dealing of Jared Kushner and the Trump organization. Trump is at 33% in Gallup. You can't go any lower. He's fucked." Damn. Again, that is a former Trump campaign aide. So, those are strong words, man. Now, Sherman writes that for the very first time since the investigation began, the prospect of impeachment is now being considered as a realistic outcome and not just a, quote, liberal fever dream. I kind of love how he puts that. Because, again, that's something that the Clinton supporters are like, oh, yes, impeachment. Like, day one, impeachment. It's like, dude, yes, he's super, super unpopular, but has he done anything wrong yet? We don't know the details. We don't know if he colluded with Russia. Let's have an investigation into it. Now, anytime you bring that up, it's like, oh, you're for Trump. No, I'm not. I actually despise the man, but you actually have to have some sort of inkling that he did something wrong. And so, as time progressed, we found more and more evidence that, yes, he might have done something wrong, such as collude with another country in order to win elections. And now, personally, I think that he had some debts that he wanted to resolve. And just like Paul Manafort, winning political office and granting political favors is a way to get whole. But that's my whole read of the situation. But anyway, continuing. According to a source, advisors in the West Wing are now on edge and doing whatever they can not to be ensnared. One person close to Dina Powell and Gary Cohn said they're making sure to leave rooms if the subject of Russia comes up. They don't even want to talk about it anymore. In fact, I believe we saw that from Trump himself, who left after being asked about Manafort. He's like, go on. I'm out of here. I'm not answering that question. So it's because they don't have answers, and they're actually starting to get really desperate. According to Sherman, the consensus among the advisors he spoke to is that Trump faces few good options to thwart Mueller and his investigation. Now, you can't fire him. I mean, he could, but if he does it now, in the middle of investigations and 2 indictments, plus the deal with Papadopoulos, well, that would seem to indicate a obstruction of justice, or a desire to obstruct justice. Not so good. That's a bad idea. And then, of course, there's the whole thing where, well, he could just pardon himself and his entire family. Now, that would immediately launch into a constitutional crisis, the likes that we haven't seen before in this country. Now, is he going to act like a king? I don't know. But that's kind of a scary thought. Like, yeah, I'm going to fire Mueller, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pardon myself and my entire family. What are you going to do? Suck it. Not good. But for now, according to a prominent Republican close to the White House, his options seem very, very limited. In fact, one thing he's wanted to do, and one of his options, was to hit back. Now, that same prominent Republican said that, quote, his instinct is to come out swinging, which, he adds, won't help things. Now, in another story that I did earlier this week, his lawyers were telling him, hey, don't hit Mueller. Don't go after him on Twitter. That's a terrible idea. Don't say bad things about him. Don't go out and attack him. Don't get your friends to attack him. The bad idea. Now, so far, Donald Trump has taken that advice, but there's no telling when he's actually going to change his mind and have a complete meltdown. We don't know. For now, writes Sherman, Trump has reacted to the deteriorating situation by lashing out on Twitter and venting in private to friends. Remember, he's not lashing out about Mueller personally, but he is angry at the investigation and, of course, going after Hillary Clinton and the Democrats and anybody who disagrees. So, in fact, Trump wants to be critical of Mueller, but he can't be. And he's also frustrated that the investigation seems to have no end in sight. Now, one person who's been briefed on Trump's thinking says, quote, he thinks all this is unfair criticism. Clinton hasn't gotten anything like this. And what about Tony Podesta? When is that going to end? Well, okay. Look, Tony Podesta, that's obviously a huge, huge problem. As a Democratic lobbyist, it's getting swept up for doing the same thing, essentially, that Manafort had done. Yeah, so he could be also in big trouble. As far as Clinton, are you kidding me? She has gotten a lot of criticism, and a lot of it's definitely fair criticism, and some of it isn't, to be fair. So, yeah, she's absolutely gotten criticism, but Trump's over here acting like a complete baby. So, it's kind of sad. But, according to 2 sources, Trump has complained to advisors about his legal team for letting the Mueller probe progress this far. Speaking to Steve Bannon on Tuesday, Trump blamed Jared Kushner for his role in decisions, specifically the firings of Mike Flynn and James Comey, that led to Mueller's appointment, including, according to a source briefed on the call. That's interesting. Hey, what happened to personal responsibility? But no, it's not my fault. It's Kushner's fault. It's all Jared. He's terrible advice. Who listened to that advice? Who appointed Jared Kushner? Yeah, that falls on you, dude. That's your fault. But anyway, Roger Stone, of course, recently told Trump that Kushner was giving him bad political advice, and Trump had agreed, according to someone familiar with the conversation. He said, Jared is the worst political advisor in the White House in modern history, according to Sam Nunberg. I'm only saying publicly what everyone says behind the scenes at Fox News, in conservative media, and the Senate and Congress. So that's funny. Again, he's listening to Jared Kushner, who in other stories was revealed to be Trump-like and almost as stupid. I say almost, but maybe they're just as stupid. And no wonder he fits inside that family. He's also apparently a slumlord. Did a story on that before. And yeah, has the same kind of problems with bankrupting businesses as his father-in-law. So, and I'm going to throw in something so incredibly inappropriate. It also was like, no wonder Ivanka Trump was attracted to that, because there's some sort of weird father-daughter thing going on. I don't know what it is, but to me it makes total sense that Ivanka Trump would marry somebody just like her dad. Like I said, weird and totally inappropriate. But I continue. Now, the different advice that Trump is getting, I'm going to go to that now. According to Gabriel Sherman, as Mueller moves to interview West Wing aides in the coming days, advisors are lobbying for Trump to consider a range of stratagems to neutralize Robert Mueller, from conciliation to a declaration of all-out war. One Republican explained that Trump's best chance for survival is to get his poll numbers up. Trump's lawyer Ty Cobb had been advocating for the view that playing ball will lead to a quicker resolution. Talked about that as well. However, Roger Stone and Steve Bannon, well, they're not in favor of that approach. They believe, and rightly so, that the establishment Republicans are just waiting to try and impeach Trump. They believe, as I do, that the Republicans are waiting to see basically what happens with tax reform, and also waiting for what Mueller does next. Bannon's like, they're out of time. They're out of time. Now, they also, of course, talked about the establishment Republicans. One Bannon ally told Sherman, the establishment has proven time and time again that they will fuck Trump over. So, and that also is true in a lot of circumstances. Now, Bannon and his allies, however, they're not interested, like I said, in waiting or playing ball. He actually wants to go on the attack. And this is very interesting. In a series of phone calls with Trump on Monday and Tuesday, Bannon told the president to shake up the legal team by installing an aggressive lawyer above Ty Cobb, according to two sources briefed in the call. Bannon has also discussed ways to pressure Congress to defund Mueller's investigation or to limit its scope, since it, of course, is now about financial crimes and corruption. Now, originally it was about election hacking and things like that. Yeah, we're not really as much interested in that as we are about possible financial deals and financial corruption, and which there seems to be plenty of if Paul Manafort's case and the charges against him are to be taken seriously, which I believe they should be. Now, according to this Bannon confidant, Mueller shouldn't be allowed a clean shot on goal. He must be contested and checked, but right now he has unchecked power. So that's what's going on in the minds of some of these Trump allies. We got to rein in Mueller. We got to rein in Mueller. What if he finds something? He's got unchecked power. We got to rein him in. Now, Sherman believes also that Bannon's sense of urgency is being fueled by the belief that Trump's hold on power is slipping. Now, you remember Roger Stone earlier had said, watch out, they're going to do the 25th. They're going to say that Trump has Alzheimer's. Now, some people speculate that that might have been an out that Trump wants to use, put there on purpose, which is a interesting strategy if it is indeed one of the things that they plan to do. But it also could be a way to say that, hey man, Trump was in control of his actions. So all that stuff that he did with Russia, it's not really his fault. Okay, like I said, an out. But look, he is starting to lose his control, and he's already lost a lot of the establishment Republicans. You've got open rebellions from Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, what was it, John McCain from Arizona. So he's losing all those guys who were actually fairly reliable votes. And Bob Corker himself was going to work from the Trump campaign or in the Trump White House. At one point, he was considered a VP pick. So how far they fall, right? But anyway, again, he's lost that Republican support, and a lot of Republicans had expressed in private, off the record, that they're just waiting to turn on Trump. So that's going to be very interesting. And look, it's because he's toxic to the Republican brand. So now I'm interested to see how the establishment Republicans will deal with this in the event that there isn't actually an impeachment that is headed by Republicans. You're not going to get impeachment unless you get all the Democrats and a great deal of the Republicans on board. So, and I think the Republicans in Congress are still really worried about the base. Now, the base overwhelmingly supports and approves of President Trump. So that's going to be very interesting. And you also see Bannon out there bankrolling his own candidates. And if the Democrats can get it together and actually run populist candidates, well, then there's going to be a bloodbath in 2018. And the establishment is not going to win. I mean, they're on the endangered species list. The establishment Republicans are. And now, if the Democrats run establishment candidates against Bannon populists, that also is going to be a slaughter, and the establishment is not going to win out. Not good. So, now speaking of impeachment, of course, 2 weeks ago, according to a source, Bannon did an analysis of the cabinet to see which members would remain loyal to Trump in the event the 25th were revoked, thereby triggering a vote to remove the president. Bannon recently told people he's not sure that President Trump would survive such a vote. One thing Steve wants Trump to do is to take this more seriously. The Bannon confidant told Sherman, "Stop joking around, stop tweeting." Hey, look, if he could take that advice, well, then he'd be doing a lot better at this point. But as I told you guys before, he can't help himself. And this is somebody who has no self-control whatsoever. He cannot pry himself away from Twitter. He's not going to stop joking around because at the end of the day, the guy is a joke. Now, as far as Stone is concerned, he wants Trump to call for a special prosecutor to investigate, you sit down for this one, Hillary Clinton and her role in approving the controversial Uranium One deal. Now, the idea behind that is that any prosecutor would have to look into the FBI and see why they approved the deal, which is an interesting tactic and one that, like I said, might be successful. And the Uranium One deal is kind of shady. And there's a lot of kickbacks and there's a lot of bribes. There was payoffs. So, and a lot of questionable things. I mean, money ended up going into Bill Clinton's pocket. There should at least, you know, if she were president, if Hillary Clinton were president, then I would be all over investigating it. But the thing is, she's not president. She doesn't actually hold any power. So, you know, it's not quite as important, and I think would be used as a distraction. Now, the thing about that is that this would make Robert Mueller a target of an investigation. So, and here's who Bannon and Stone would want as the investigator. One is Mark Mukasey, a colleague of Rudy Giuliani, or the other pick to investigate Mueller would be Judge Napolitano from Fox News. Interesting. Stone said you would immediately have to inform Mueller, Comey, and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein that they are under federal investigation. Trump cannot afford to fire Mueller politically, but this effectively pushes him aside. Now, whether or not Trump is savvy enough to actually do that Well, that's an open question. And of course, the timing matters. More indictments are likely coming. Those two, Manafort and Gates, are not the first. They will not be the last. So you've got a window for this, and it's growing smaller and smaller. Politically, this looks really bad. Unless, of course, you already support Donald Trump. So if you actually end up doing this and launching an investigation into Robert Mueller, which looks like they're starting to lay the groundwork on Fox, well, to everybody that isn't a hardcore Donald Trump supporter, this is going to look like a deflection. Now, regardless of which way they go, it's pretty obvious that the people in the White House are really, really concerned and very worried about what's going to happen next with the Mueller investigation. Okay. This is going to be a long show. We're going to go way over time. Maybe. Okay. More key details in the new Trump tax plan have come out. This is from the Washington Post. They report that the new Trump tax plan now will establish 3 brackets. It's what we knew before. This would be 12, 25, and 35%. However, it also keeps the top rate of 39% for the highest earners. Well, that's interesting. That's not something that we expected the Republicans to do. Now, they break it down and say that those making up to $24,000 would pay no income tax. For married taxpayers filing jointly, those earning up to $90,000 would be in the 12%. Those up to $260,000 would be in the 25%. And those earning up to $1 million would be in the 35%. And of course, anybody over that pays the 39%. So it's definitely a less progressive tax because now, like I said, you're going to be seeing people who are making $150,000 pay only 12%. Ugh. I'm sorry, 25%. I missed a bracket. Now, the proposal, however, does also double the standard deduction for middle-class families, expands it to about $24,000 for married couples from $12,700, and sets it at $12,000 for individuals. Now, that actually may sound great. Like, oh, hey, look at that, man. They doubled our standard deduction. Woo, we're in the money. But wait, they also eliminate the personal deduction, which kind of counterbalances that and sort of offsets a lot of the benefit from doubling your standard deduction. So you can't take them both at the same time. Now, Republicans do also plan to expand the child tax credit. Hey, that's decent. They expand it from $1,600 to from $1,000 and add a $300 credit for each parent and non-child dependent, such as older family members. So if you got older family members living with you, an extended household, well, there's an extra 300, 600, however many people you've got living with you. Okay, so there's some things that might help the middle class. However, they also get rid of a lot of deductions. For one, they get rid of a 15% credit for individuals over 65 who are retired and on disability. Now, currently, these individuals can claim up to about $7,500 for a joint return, $5,000 for a single individual, and $3,750 for a married individual with a joint campaign. Now, the bill would also repeal the adoption tax credit, no longer allow deductions for tax preparation, and repeal credits for alimony, and deductions for moving expenses would also no longer be allowed. So again, a lot of that stuff impacts people who are poor and middle class. So here's the big one. The mortgage interest, the home interest deduction, right? Now, under the Republican plan, existing homeowners can keep the deduction. However, future purchases will be capped at $500,000. Presently, Americans can deduct interest payments made in their first $1 million worth of home loans. So what this does is that it, again, impacts people who are middle class who are in larger cities. For example, New Jersey, New York, LA. So places that have expensive homes, you now can no longer deduct as much. You can only deduct half of what you do now and the payments go into your home. So again, that's actually raises taxes on the middle class. Now there's another change, the elimination of the medical expense deduction. So currently you can of course deduct medical expenses. Gone. Okay, well, if you're poor, middle class, and you have medical expenses that you have to pay, well, you no longer are able to deduct that. Now that's essentially a raise in taxes for you. So, but Republicans are like, no, that's okay. Doubling the standard deduction and all the other stuff that we're doing, that'll offset that. And maybe in some cases that's true, but in other cases, perhaps not. So, and now they go to limiting the state and local tax deduction. Now that, again, will have a large impact on larger cities. So that's all the changes that currently are applying to the middle class. So, and we don't know what kind of impact it'll actually have until they do an analysis on it. And I'm pretty sure the CBO is going to run the numbers, and we'll talk about that more in depth. However, how does it impact the rich? That is the important question. Now, for one, the Republican plan was to eliminate the estate tax. Now, this doesn't actually do that, at least not immediately. Now, the plan is double the threshold from $5 million to $11 million. So anything under $11 million, you won't pay an estate tax on. So super, super rich families will still be able to take advantage of the estate of opting out of the estate tax. Now, the estate tax, like I said, gets phased out completely within 6 years of this plan. So now, first it doubles the threshold, and then they get rid of it completely. Gone. Okay. Again, that's something that 0.2% of all households in America pay. So this is going to benefit the super wealthy, and especially the children of super wealthy Americans. Now, another thing that benefits the wealthy, the corporate tax rate. So in this bill, multinational corporations overseas will now pay a 10% tax, and this applies worldwide. So automatically they're going to get taxed 10%. So they say, oh, but that's to avoid all these corporations stashing their money overseas. So instead of letting them build it up overseas, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a flat tax rate of 10% on all earnings overseas that you're going to have to send back to the government. Now, this is sort of like a permanent tax holiday. So, and they've done this before as far as these tax holidays. We had one under George W. Bush, which didn't work at all. They brought back money, but they didn't create any jobs. Now, this tax bill also has a mandatory tax holiday. So all the corporations, the $2 trillion they have overseas, they're going to send it back. But it's going to be taxed at very low rates, somewhere around 5%. Again, we've already done that under George W. Bush. And what happened? They didn't create jobs. No, what they did is that they did stock buybacks. So the Trump campaign and the GOP is like, okay, we're going to avoid that situation. That's going to probably score some political points with us. But we're just going to lower the multinational tax rate for corporations overseas to 10%. And then they're going to save a lot of money and not have to go to the Cayman Islands. So there's that. Now, they also lowered the pass-through rate for businesses to 25%. So as you can see, multinational corporations do very, very well in this tax deal. And of course, corporations here at home are taxed at 20% in this deal. So again, they also do incredibly well. So the cost of this bill, with all the provisions that we know so far put together, will cost about $1.5 trillion, and most of the benefits will go to the very, very wealthy. Even though I think the middle class will see a slight bit of a tax cut, but we're going to see how much that actually turns out to, how big that benefit's going to be. But so far, it looks like a gigantic boon for the rich. Now, I think the rich don't pay enough in taxes. Now, I don't want to punish them. No, nobody wants to punish them, right? We want them to pay their fair share. This is definitely not their fair share. Okay? And look, the other thing is that it blows up the deficit. I thought you guys cared about deficit reduction. I thought Republicans howled and screamed every time there was a bill that passed that they couldn't actually pay for, that ended up adding to the debt and the deficit. What happened? What happened? There's no dynamic growth. That actually doesn't work. The supply siders, it doesn't actually work. I know, we've tried it. So this is going to blow up the deficit. This is only going to add to the debt. So any Republican, anybody who calls himself fiscally conservative should be absolutely outraged and vote against it. But again, I think we have very few of those kinds of people on the Republican side that are actually fiscally conservative. Nonetheless, this bill for them, and for Trump specifically, this is must pass. Since, of course, this is the only political win that might actually get. If they fail to get these tax cuts, the Trump presidency is essentially over. They'll never get another chance. Not in the near future, anyway. I mean, think about it. They fail on the ACA. They failed to repeal and replace Obamacare, despite having a slim majority. And also, if they fail on tax reform, gone. So this is a Republican saying, look, all hands on deck. We got to get this done. Now, the Democrats aren't going to pay for it. They're not going to vote for it. So they say that anything that cuts taxes on the rich and corporations right now, since everybody is paying attention, is a no-go. So they're not going to vote for it. So they need all Republicans. They need 50 through their process, budget reconciliation. They need these 50 votes. And it's going to be razor thin. From what I'm seeing, some Republicans are like, absolutely not. I'm not going to add to the deficit. Some key Republicans in the Senate are not going to go for it as it's written so far. So we'll have to see. This is going to be a squeaker. It's going to be very close. And we're going to have to watch to see what happens. All right, so there's your tax reform. Let's go and have a little fun. One of my favorite topics. Nope. Pizza. Okay. Now, recently, Papa John's owner, John Schnatter, had blamed the NFL protests started by Colin Kaepernick on his declining pizza sales. According to The Hill, Schnatter said that negative perception of the NFL since players started refusing to stand for the national anthem to protest racial inequality have ended up hurting the company's sales. Aw, millionaire has it sad. He continued by saying, the NFL has hurt us. Has hurt us. We are disappointed the NFL and its leadership did not move to resolve this. Oh, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to infringe on the players' First Amendment rights? Is that what they're supposed to do? Is that what you want them to do? Well, actually, yes. That's exactly what they want. That's what John Schnatter wants. That's what Donald Trump wants and has demanded. Now, imagine that. We have a president right now. Or think about that, right? We don't have to imagine it. It's actually happening. We have a president that demands that NFL players stand for the national anthem. That the players or that the owners take away the rights of these majority African-American players who've decided to express their First Amendment rights to protest racism and racial inequalities. That's what fascism looks like. I'm just saying. Now, finally, he said, quote, leadership starts at the top, and this is an example of poor leadership. Schnatter said, noting that he thought the issue had been, quote, nipped in the bud a year and a half ago. I thought we already took care of this problem. How dare these people actually go and kneel for the flag and kneel for the anthem? You know what that's doing to me? That is hurting my pizza sales. That's hurting my bottom line. And if there's one thing, since I'm such a good Republican, there's one thing that I can't stand, it's black people getting in the way of me making money. Do you understand how petty and ridiculous that is? But of course, John Schnatter, he is a Republican, he's very conservative, and he's a Trump guy. So this is absolutely expected of him. How dare you protest against police brutality and institutional racism? How dare you let that get in the way of my profits? Now, you know whose profits didn't go down, by the way? Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut actually came out and said, and this was a representative on CNBC, he said, hey man, those NFL protests, they're not actually affecting our budget. Our sales aren't down. Our sales are actually up. Now, Pizza Hut has no affiliation with the NFL, which might have something to do with it. To be fair, I should say Papa John's is the pizza, the official pizza of the NFL. Again, so I guess those two brands are inextricably linked, which that's one reason that I don't really watch the NFL. I know I'm a terrible American. And I also don't eat Papa John's. But I'll get into why in a minute. But according to CNBC, Pizza Hut saw a 1% growth this quarter. Higher than expected. Ooh, they're actually doing pretty good. The company said during an earnings conference call, we're not seeing any impact from any of that in our business. Yeah, maybe you've got people going away from Papa John's and actually going to Pizza Hut. But what's funny is that they had to weigh in on this. And you know what we call that? That is an open-handed slap, boy. Now, for me, my opinion is I think that people aren't buying Papa John's because it's terrible. And the other thing, of course, is John Schnatter is a famous asshole. This is a guy who wanted to charge people back in 2012 an Obamacare tax. Because how dare I pay a little bit extra so that my employee has health insurance. No, I already live in a castle with a moat. I need all that money. You know, at some point having all that money, it stops being about the money and it actually starts being about status, right? So, and John Schnatter's like, no, my status is I'm a greedy prick who lives in a castle, and I don't want to pay any more in taxes so that even if it means that my employees are actually healthier and actually more productive. Not going to happen. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass on that cost to my customers, the people that actually help me make money. Does that make any sense? No, that's the logic of a dick. But anyway, he's going to make the customer, or he was going to make the customer basically eat the cost along with this crappy pizza. And look, eating his pizza is bad enough on its own. The hell with that. Again, I don't like their pizza. I've had it before. Reminded me of cardboard. It's terrible. I was not impressed. And this was before I knew of his political beliefs, to be fair. And now, on the other side, I'm not a huge fan of Pizza Hut either, but I would take them over Papa John's any day of the week. Just saying. So not only does the owner of Papa John's have terrible political opinions, but it just feels like his pizza is cheap and tastes bad, even though it's not cheap. Papa John's, man, terrible ingredients, terrible pizza, and also racism. What are you gonna do? Republicans, man. Okay. One more. All right. Now, Energy Secretary Rick Perry says that we should expand fossil fuels because they can prevent rape. I'm not kidding. This is something that he actually said. Amazing. Now, during an event with Axios and NBC in Washington, D.C., Rick Perry had brought up sexual assault after launching into a story about a trip to Africa, where he said that, quote, people are dying because they don't have access to energy. He said, and it's going to take fossil fuels to push power out to those villages in Africa, where a young girl said to my face, one of the reasons that electricity is so important to me is not only because I'm not going to have to try and read by the light of a fire and have those fumes literally kill people, but also from the standpoint of sexual assault. When the lights are on, when you have light that shines, the righteousness, if you will, on those types of acts. What? That is utterly confusing, and I'm pretty sure that never actually happened. That said, does he make a good point about how access to energy actually helps people? Absolutely, of course. And look, there's a recent report out about pollution that showed that, look, wood stoves are actually one of the biggest killers in developing countries. All the, the fumes and the from burning wood, from these wood stoves. That's a cause of a lot of things like asthma and death. So, yeah, do we want to bring electricity to other countries? Absolutely. Now, rape and sexual assault, however, he's way, way off on that. It's not as if that happens only in back alleys or places where it's dark. No, it happens in any place where men, or, women in some circumstances, but mostly men, having to hold a disproportionate level of power. I mean, look at Harvey Weinstein, for example, and all the revelations that are coming out since Harvey Weinstein. He didn't do what he wanted to do or what he did in a room just because it was dark. Okay, he didn't do this in rooms lit by wood stoves and candles. Same thing with Bill O'Reilly, Roger Ailes, etc. They did what they did in full light. Maybe it's got more to do with power than electricity. Just saying. At the same time, again, he's right about people in these remote regions where there's no grid. They would actually benefit from fossil fuels. However, I do have to mention that the environment would not benefit from fossil fuels. So, how about instead of pushing for more coal and more oil and natural gas, why don't we do what they're trying in Puerto Rico right now? Now, as you may or may not know, a story came out recently where Tesla has stepped in to restore power to the island. And they're doing so with all renewable solar energy. Now, they've already created so far a grid to power a children's hospital and are now actually looking for a deal to rebuild Puerto Rico's entire energy infrastructure to run on solar energy. Now, look, most of Puerto Rico's energy infrastructure was destroyed in Hurricane Maria. So, I mean, these are power poles and plants and transformers. All that stuff has got to be rebuilt. The total cost is about $5 billion to rebuild their energy infrastructure. Just their energy infrastructure. Now, that'd be pretty hard for, I mean, that's already difficult, right? But their energy authority in Puerto Rico, they're already $9 billion in debt. So they're going to have a really, really hard time just being able to afford to rebuild their energy infrastructure. So here comes Elon Musk saying, hey, don't worry about it. What we're going to do is that we're going to try and do renewable energy here. And that's amazing. It's a huge deal because, again, that kind of undertaking is enormous. If they can get it done in Puerto Rico, imagine what they could do for developing countries in, for example, South Central Africa. It's really kind of a test to see what Elon Musk and Tesla Energy can actually do. I mean, look, the cost of solar is already down to at incredibly cheap levels, and now it's actually one of the biggest job creators in America. And it is the future. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they can, for one, restore the energy grid and actually make a 21st century grid in Puerto Rico. And then to see if they could expand those projects into other places, into developing countries like Africa. Now, it might not be able to do anything about sexual assault, which of course requires that women not only be taught to defend themselves, but also men to take responsibility for their own actions and the actions of other men. But solar will actually solve other problems like climate change and lack of affordable energy in low-income countries. And of course, that pollution problem from burning wood. But see, Rick Perry is not exactly smart. I think he thinks the glasses make him look smart, but trust me, he is not a smart person. And this guy is running our energy grid. He is running the Department of Energy. Just consider that. Just think about that for a while. Saying these kinds of stupid and ridiculous things. It doesn't have anything to do with rape or sexual assault, but it does have a lot to do with the people who funded Rick Perry. So keep that in mind. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. I definitely appreciate it. Make sure to give us a like and share if you haven't already. And subscribe if you haven't already. We hit 200 live viewers. So thank you very much for watching. You guys are awesome. Thank you to the people in the chat, of course, for the conversations. Thank you to everybody who has liked and shared. Thank you to all the patrons. Patreon.com/TYTNation. That's you can sign up to support the show. Thank you to all of you for all of that stuff. You're why we do the show. All right, everybody. Love you guys. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. Have an awesome night.